Hello again, and welcome to another of Mosaic's coffee breaks. Mosaic is, of course, a collaboration of the organisations shown at the front of this presentation, and that collaboration focuses very much on the ownership issues associated with mid-market law firms. And when we say ownership, we mean everything associated with ownership, mergers and acquisitions, partnership structures, succession planning, partner exits, and everything associated with all of those issues. I hope you enjoy this broadcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the latest in the Mosaic Coffee Break videos. We're joined once again as our guest by Susan Glenholme, Managing Partner of St Albans headquartered Debenhams Ottaway. In part one of this conversation, we talked about the challenges facing today's managing partner. And one of those, which comes sort of backed with opportunities, is what do independent law firms do nowadays with private equity circling? And so many of the client firms that I talk to, they're either talking to private equity or they're talking about arranging their own mergers and acquisitions. And it seems that standing still, of course, is seen by most managing partners as no longer a viable option. Would you like to give us an insight, Susan, as to how it's affected you and your firm, this I think, ever accelerating drive to consolidation in our sector?
Yes, thank you, Nigel. I think the main thing at the moment is that there's quite a lot of firms near us who are being tempted by private equity. And as you said, it is difficult to remain independent, and the reasons for that. It feels a little bit like sometimes you're just in a dinghy on your own rowing and there's yachts coming around you who are potentially hiding a big tsunami wave that might be taking you over. So I am hoping that that tsunami wave isn't actually there, and we will also be able to survive in the legal landscape that's changing. But I think the main thing is succession for us, looking at that and seeing why we can bring the next generation in and making sure that that continues. I think a lot of the firms that I know who have potentially thought about going to private equity is mainly because they haven't got succession, they haven't got the right people to manage the firm. Not everyone wants to be doing the managing partner role, and I think that is something now that people think for that reason they want to look at private equity, and that is our main challenge now, to try and resist that and stay independent if we can.
And where do you see the principal benefit in being independent as opposed to having loads more cash down your back pocket to invest in some of the things that I'm sure you'd like to invest in? Where's the big advantage?
I'd say the main advantage is that from the client perspective, I'd like to say that we have long-standing clients who have been here for generations with us, and we have looked after for generations. I know some people would say that private equity means we've got more cash to invest in that, but the relationship, I want it to remain that it is personal. Majority of my clients I've known for 25 years, and I know their grandchildren now, and being able to be that face of the firm, that I can talk to them one-to-one and I am able to continue that personal relationship, is really important to me. And for the future of the legal profession, that we are able to continue that client relationship, I think is very important.
I'd very much mirror that. I'd have a farming client who I work very closely with their well-known law firm, who I have a high regard for, and the client was and still is very happy with that law firm, but it's just been taken over by private equity. And the first conversation I had with my client was, not sure about that firm being taken over by private equity. We all know that private equity looks to focus on maximizing profitability. What's the effect going to be on our fees and the service levels? And I think that mirrors exactly what you're saying, Susan.
Not that there's anything trying to maximize profitability, Howard.
Yes, I think it's maximizing profitability at the expense of the clients and expense of the quality of the service.
I mean, I agree with all this. Could I just play devil's advocate here and go, if I was speaking on behalf of a PE firm, I'd go, no, we yes, of course we want to maximize profit, but any well-run law firm will do that. We appreciate the fact that we need to maintain those client relationships because the nature of law is, purely transactional, we hope. So, is that really the case? Do we think that PE firms will diminish the service and try and screw extra cash out of the clients?
I think the the culture, I think, is the main thing that will change. And from the firms that have changed at the moment and gone to private equity, not all of them, but some of them, the culture is very different. And it is very much, the rules are 5 days a week in the office. This is how we expect you to operate. Some of the firms being told that they can't dress as they want. They have to be in a certain dress code, all suits, and back to that sort of environment. But that the culture side of it is that more personal culture is what I would like to try and get back. If that's what we want to keep. If the
so you're saying actually it will enable you to recruit and retain better lawyers because they have the culture within your firm that doesn't exist within
yes.
a PE-owned firm. Interesting.
And I have had quite a few CVs through for that reason, which has been really good for me.
I mean, I used to work for a firm not far from where we were, I have to be very careful what I say here, was acquired by a PE-backed firm. We lost a few people initially because the PE-backed firm had a big checkbook and they were new and shiny. And interesting, a large number came back within 2 to 3 years.
I think I'd add to the whole issue that we know the private equity wants to maximize profit, as I've said, and we'll take a piece of the action. Now that piece of the action won't be available for the thrusting young lawyers coming up who aspire to be equity partners in a law firm. Now the counter is, do they all still aspire to be partners? And I'm not as convinced as Nigel is that they're not. I still think there are.
I'm just saying how it's by no means all of them. It's
by no means all
a
of them.
Smaller percentage than in our generation.
Yes, I accept that.
Yeah.
But how are you going to retain those young, thrusting entrepreneurial partners when they see that they're not going to take a piece of the action for the future? And I think that's the long-term decline, and where long-term private equity won't work. And I'd also add, we all talk about, and all private equity talks about, having money to invest in AI and shiny new offices and new IT. Frankly, most firms sell out because the partners are aging and want to get some cash in their back pocket.
And nobody wants to run it anymore. Nobody
exactly.
Susan,
I think that's the key thing. Sorry, Nigel. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I wondered if we could pivot. I think Susan's made a compelling case for retaining independence and retaining the culture that's so important. Where does that leave you in terms of opportunities moving forward? If we say with great respect to our friends and colleagues in the private equity industry that Debenhams Otway are not currently for sale, what are your opportunities?
So I think the opportunities we can offer is that going back to the client part, that you are still very much in charge of that client base, and you can grow that. Opportunity is there to grow the client base. However you want to do that, the opportunity to become an equity partner and be able to say what type of clients you want to look after. I think that is something that would appeals to me now, would have appealed to me as a younger solicitor, but also the flexibility. I think COVID has changed so much now, and we can still offer flexibility. We've just done that recently, offering flexibility where our younger staff have spoken to me and said they don't want to be tied to their desk 9 to 5. How can we offer something different? And I think a lot of the bigger firms or private equity is going back to the more traditional law firm, and it's a set way of doing things, and people, I don't think, really want that. And if we can offer that, we can make the decisions to be more flexible. I think that will really go down well with our staff, and treating them like adults, and they will then hopefully be able to look after the clients because they feel trusted themselves.
A very good and well-rehearsed answer, if I may say so. And moving on from there, Susan, do you think that the same factors play in your favour in terms of any discussions you might want to have with other firms about growing together?
Yes, and that's something I think as part of LawNet that we are trying to look at, how we can retain that really good base that we've got. Being part of LawNet means that you are hopefully a well-run firm, and that does make you attractive to the private equity. So a lot of firms have been contacted, and we have as well, and it's something that I want to make sure that we are able to offer something different to and change the way people think about lawyers, which is my vision, to try and do that, and that we are not all boring and stuffy, and if we can change that. And
do you think if you're looking at sort of growth, whether, you know, if you approach a smaller firm, maybe where they've not got their succession sorted out, you can offer something better than the PE firm?
Yes, and that's what we're trying to do, is consolidate with firms we know where we have a gap in our client base, and trying to bring on those lateral hires and the bolt-ons, and strengthen our client base. What do the clients need? If we are that trusted advisor and we're all working together, what can we do so that we are able to service all of their client needs, and we don't have to pass that elsewhere? That's what we're trying to look for, if we can.
Good, thank you. Makes sense.
Any more from
I was
Howard?
going to say, so what's the limit then, Susan? 200 partners, 10 offices, 20 partners, 1 office. What's the limit? When you start growing and expanding and acquiring, don't you get onto the treadmill that you've got to keep going?
Yes, so we looked at this again. Is that bit of why 30 million, why not 40 million, why not 50 million? And what is that? I think it is that the profitability bit, the cash, making sure that actually you're running a well-run business, and the profitability is important to us, to make sure that we are keeping that, so that we can invest back into the firm as well. So that is something that we don't want it to be just any old number that you keep growing, and 200, 500, where do you end with that? It's trying to retain the culture we have, and that we are remunerated for that and able to invest in the firm as well.
And hence, I suppose, to conclude, profitability is the key at the end of the day, making sure you can reward your partners at the appropriate level.
And invest back into the staff to make sure that everyone is happy to be here and wants to be here. That's the
Absolutely. You do need the consent of your partners to retain some profits each year to plough back into the firm. Susan, that's been a really, really interesting chat. Thank you again so much for your time, both on this call and our previous call. Always good to see you, always good to talk legal sector stuff with you. So thank you again, Susan. Thank you, Howard and Mark, for your contributions. And we'll be back with another Mosaic Coffee Break in a couple of weeks. Thank you all.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.